I'm speaking with seasoned executive producer Lashan Browning, who has served as the showrunner for cable's #1 hit, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, as well as VH1's Cartel Crew and other unscripted series like Stevie and Jocelyn Go Hollywood and Leave It to Stevie. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Lashan.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I read that you actually began your career working for Spike Lee, and then you went on to become an integral part of the startup team of Oxygen, which we know is now owned by NBC Universal. So I actually wanted to start by talking about how you got your start in the industry.
Sure. I started, I am dating myself here, but I started working in the industry in 1990. Long time ago. And I just knew, I knew that Spike had just done, when I saw Do the Right Thing, and I'm sorry, when I saw She's Gotta Have It, it was Spike's thesis project at NYU. And I just knew anyway that I wanted to be in the television and film industry, but I didn't know how to do it. And he would do a workshop called the 40 Acres and a Mule Film Works workshop at Long Island University's Brooklyn campus. And I basically came to everyone that they did. And I befriended his assistant, or maybe I bugged her. And I wanted to work in the business, and I would do it for free. And at that time, doing an internship, anyone could do an internship. Nowadays, things have changed, rightfully so, because of labor laws and all that. But it was a great opportunity for a young woman in Brooklyn to know all the, to have this prolific filmmaker living in my neighborhood, so to speak. And it's how I started out. And I wouldn't take no for an answer. And I said, I'll work for free. And I worked some really crazy hours, and I learned a lot. And my first foray into it, I was a craft service person. These days, that's just, I didn't cook the food or anything, but I was responsible for making sure Crafty was up to par. And, my parents were like, craft service, you're going to work for free. And no one in my family was in the industry, so I started working there. And I would do some of the his commercials. I think I did a Levi commercial and all that, but my big break came working on my big break came when I worked on Malcolm X. And that was the first movie in big production that I worked on. It was amazing. And from there, I, did some coordinating work. I moved up to a production manager. Monty Ross was he was a partner of Spike's, and John Killick. They were very supportive of me because I really wanted to win. I was no nonsense at that age. I wanted to be in the industry, and I wanted to know the business. I didn't care about who was hooking up, but in front of the camera, I wanted the inner workings of the industry, and that's where I got my start.
Lashan, how important is it to know what you want, to envision it, and to sort of have some type of structure or strategy in place? Because like you said, you knew you wanted to work in the industry, and
Right.
you started off at a very low level job and worked your way up. When you were initially going in, did you know you wanted to be executive level?
Yeah, when I initially went in, I knew things were happening that, I had become a student of it in a way. Like, I was already reading the Hollywood Reporter, figuring out how the business works. And so I just had that curiosity about, not about acting. I have a respect for the craft, of course, but what happens? How do we prepare the people who are entertaining us? That's just always been intriguing to me. So Uh, I mean, there are lots of times, Selena, that my desire of wanting to be in the industry could have been killed, no doubt about it. Because as you get deeper, you realize these are not spaces, the money spaces, the budget spaces are not the spaces where Black people usually roam, let alone Black women. So it was tough because that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know how much the generator costs, the camera costs, locations, the permits, how does the union work? Like I wanted to know that part of the business, and it's where I got my start. And I have to say I was super supported in that. I was hazed a little bit, like a lot of people are that come into the industry. And I was hazed, not in a negative way, but to really see what I was made of, to see if I had what it takes. I mean, you're dealing with a commercial during that time, $1 million commercial. Like, and Spike does a lot of commercial business. People don't, realize that, but he does a big commercial business. And you got to have the right people dealing with that type of money. And I wanted to be one of those people. So I just had and it grew because I'm a student of it. So the more I knew, the more I wanted to know, how are the deals done? Who sits in the room to make a decision if the script gets picked up? What's a table read? How are the actors, how do the actor deals get worked out? Like how much does an agent make off of a deal? People look at it as a sexy job, entertainment, but there's a lot of unsexy stuff that happens behind the scenes to really make a show happen. We don't just show up one day with a camera and hang out with people, and that's what people think. There's a huge business behind the scenes, and it's a lot of money at stake behind the scenes, and a lot of people to answer to who's cutting the check for that money. So I wanted to be one of those people that was in the know, that could be a part of the engine which makes the industry move and rumble. So and I learned it pretty young. I knew at that age, I knew at 16 is what I wanted to
Mm.
do. So and I just put those things into place, man. When I knew I wanted to do it, I wasn't going to get any help, not because anybody in my family didn't want to help me. They didn't know how. They weren't from an
Mhm.
entertainment industry. They didn't know how to do that. So I put some stuff into place and I started building relationships. And one was Desiree Jelleret. She was Spike's assistant back then, and I love her. She was amazing. Yeah.
That is,
Yeah.
I love digging into people's, their start, that foundation, because it really like lays that trail, the
It
trajectory of where you
does.
go. I do want to, kind of jump ahead a little bit because
Sure.
you're also the owner of NOLA Entertainment, which is a full service production company yourself. And, you were talking about the business side. So like you are running this business in production. I read that through NOLA, you've conceived and sold several original series. When
Yeah.
and how did you launch your company?
I launched my company, I had back in 1999, I became a part of Oprah at that time, joined with Carsey Werner Mandabach and Geraldine Laybourne. And Paul Allen actually was a big funder of it, one of the funders of Oxygen. And it was during the time when Oprah, before OWN, when she wanted to do her own network. And I became a part of it back then through Gail King. I was introduced to through Gail. God bless her. She's the reason I'm in the television industry, because I made that jump to television in 1999. And Gail, I was introduced to Gail by a friend of mine, Ellen LeVar, and I got into Oxygen at that point, and we were a part of something that was really the spirit of Oprah, doing something, taking her show at that time and putting it, being an inspiration and an aspiration to women. That was the, initial mission of it. And as things went on with, it was a startup, and it things started to change. And what we did then, I mean, it was a few of us, left after they did like a massive layoff, to reorganize the company. And there were a few of us left. And one person that was left that I had become friendly with was Monica Taylor. She happens to have been married to Funkmaster Flex at that time. And Spike TV was Spike TV was rebranding from the new TNN. It was TNN, and then it was the new TNN, and they were rebranding to Spike TV. I can't get away from Spike, right? So it was rebranding to Spike TV. And at the time when we were leaving, she and I were like, well, what are we going to do now? And she said, this is interesting. Flex has an opportunity to do a car show at Spike TV, which is Viacom CBS, which is I'm with them now. And they he wants to do a car customizing show with celebrities. And I was like, okay, well, that's us. And to Funkmaster Flex's credit, Ashton, as I know him as, he went to the head of Spike TV and said, hey, I'll do this show, but Monica and Lashan, they have to be the production company. They know me. They know what it is I want to do, what I want to do. They know that, yeah, I'm a radio guy, but these ladies are going to put me on the road to be known as a car guy. And that's what I want to be known as. And I know that they can do it. And he spoke up for us in the boardroom. We didn't really know. We were like, okay, we'll help you put the show together. We didn't think we would be the production company. And that was the launch of having someone sponsor you basically in the room, and to say, hey, these are the two women that they're partners. They work together really well. I want them to do the show, no interference. And we became the flagship show for Spike TV. And that's how I got my start with my company. And from then, it's just been, a wild ride. It's been a wild
Yeah.
ride. Yeah, yeah.
That's so much history. Like,
It's
I
a
don't know how
lot.
you
Yeah,
you put it all in, one little
yeah,
answer, but that's definitely a lot. I'm so happy you brought up Ride with Funkmaster Flex,
yeah,
because in addition to that, you were also the EP and the creator of Starter Wives on
yeah,
TLC at one
yeah.
point. And I kind of want to know, like, where does this inspiration for these show concepts come for you?
For starter wives, for instance, look, the whole world and all this stuff is about relationships as well, right? So knowing what the business is looking for, knowing what development is looking for, knowing, going out and having those relationships at the networks and calling up your, someone who runs the development department, or not even calling them up. Once you've built these relationships, people will reach out to you through your agent or through you if they know you and go, hey, we kind of looking to fill this bucket. We want to do something around women in this world or men in this world, or whatever. So Starter Wives was actually, it's crazy. It was around and has a lot of different names to it. But Starter Wives was a culmination of women who had started their TLC was looking for, TLC was looking to get into the urban world. And they really did make a big push for it. They made a really great push for it. I mean, it was all blocked out with, with what the shows would be at prime time. And it was around the time of Honey Boo Boo, if anyone remembers that.
I
So
love Honey Boo Boo.
yeah, me too, me too, me too. And that was a lead in for our show. And knowing, again, the show didn't last. And I don't run from the Starter Wives story, because I think it's very important that people know Starter Wives came in. Look, Discovery is a big fish globally. So they wanted to do something not just different, they wanted to get in on the culture game, on the pop culture game. and they tried it and it didn't work. But it didn't work because not because it wasn't a good show. It didn't work because Honey Boo Boo was the number one show. Our show was a lead in. We didn't do bad, but we didn't do bad at all. We were like 150,000 short of what would have made it be a success for the first air. So for the first three sessions, it needed to stay at a certain point, and it didn't. It kept dropping off. And TLC was so awesome. They didn't stop production. They let me finish all eight when they knew they were going to end at the, they told me that after the third airing, we won't be showing anymore. But what they did do was they were able to sell that, right? They were able to sell that to other markets internationally, or they sold it. I think it was sold on iTunes or whatever. But the value in that, and again, being a student of what it is that you're doing, so you don't like be so down on yourself about what's happening. It's a business model. Advertisers want, if my show or any show is not making the cut, they don't have to continue to air. They need to be able to pivot, because the advertising dollars, they're not paying, Unilever is not paying for a show to not make the mark at the time they paid for. And if it's not doing it, you gotta go. And you gotta put something in, that will. So that was another, big, it wasn't about it was another learning phase that I went through. I laid in the bed for 7 days after, depressed, but I picked myself back up. And Starter Wives was a culmination of me having those relationships and knowing how to get to those relationships, knowing how to get to Tashira Simmons, Liza Morales. It's connections, and it's building relationships in the industry, which is so important. Solid relationships, not relationships to go to a premiere, relationships to keep you fresh, and to keep you in demand for your ideas and your business acumen.
How do you build and maintain those relationships so that it's not transactional, but it becomes, a real beneficial relationship to all the parties involved?
And do you mean in terms of behind the scenes?
Yes.
Behind the scenes. What was the question again, so I can do it in the way I have to tell everyone to do it? What
Like,
was the question?
how do you do that? Like, how do you do that so well where, throughout your career, you're saying relationship. That's like a theme that I'm hearing. I'm like, so how were you able to really build these relationships so that, it's not just like, okay, you do for me, I do for you, but it's more something that's organic and authentic?
Yeah, I mean, how I was able to build and maintain relationships in the industry, I was groomed in a way. It depends on how you come in. That doesn't mean you can't change and learn. I was groomed to watch Spike Lee have his college friends on the set, people that he met in the beginning, to Monty Ross, Ruth Carter, Wynn Thomas, to have Ernest Dickerson, to have these people that he came up with, is how I was trained. You have those people that you have a relationship with, and you stick together. You work on projects. I mean, the whole industry is like that. All the industries are like that. People hire their friends. They hire people they went to school with. So I was groomed in the tribe sort of aspect of, when you do the new film or when you do this new show, okay, let's see if the tribe is available. Of course, you let others in, but the tribe will bring in other people that they know, that are maybe not, that you don't know. So because we, as a, Black woman, it wasn't the transaction thing is interesting because it is a transaction in a lot of ways, but I didn't, and we what is it? We couch it in, oh, let's go to dinner, let's have drinks. But I've never, my business is my business, my business is business, and my personal relationships are personal. So if I'm going to a business meeting, we may like each other and we may think, we have similarities. And if a real friendship comes out of that, that's cool. But if I'm in a business relationship, it is for us to do business together. It's for us to work together or think of ideas or to share tips or share information with each other that, we need to like make it, I call it the Underground Railroad sometimes with us in the industry. Like there are things that I know that I share with other Black women or, or women in general, to be honest. So it's tough maintaining those relationships because they're so connected to your next job or
Mm.
someone else who knows the person who is the showrunner or someone who knows the person who works at the network or who knows the post-production person. So relationships are important. You don't just give a resume in and say, I'm great at what I do. Give me that resume is great, but you need
Mm.
somebody to co-sign you.
Yep.
And it's what people don't really want to talk about, but it's true. And you can be kept out of a lot of jobs because you're not aligned with the right people. Or you can get jobs that the people who don't think you deserve the job that you have because you're not a part of that, you know. So it's a very, I mean, life is like that, right? Relationships are important no matter what industry you're in. So maintaining them and having, some sponsors inside while you're not there, speaking on your behalf is a big deal as well, because they need to be able to speak and stand on what they're saying about you, and that has always been important to me, that people can
Mm.
know that I'm responsible, that I understand money, time, budgets, schedules, protocol, who's who, how to behave in certain situations. Like
Yep.
it's a lot. It's a lot. Knowing
Mm-hmm.
what to say and what not to say, who to talk to, who not to talk to at a certain point, knowing the hierarchy, who's who on the show, at the network, at the studio. It is a lot of grooming that goes into this industry. It really is. And I hope that I can be a conduit, being that I've been around so long,
Mm.
for young women to understand, about it, because so many people are, given a bill of goods about how it is to make it. And it's too bad. It's too bad
Mm.
how some people are groomed and trained in the industry,
Mm.
and I may be old school. I'll admit I am I'm a woman of a certain age, and I came up in the, era of the 90s, like
Yep.
in late 80s, 90s music, filmmaking. I mean, we had a whole like thing going on. It was a camaraderie, even when there was war. John Singleton, God bless the dead. He and Spike and the Wayans brothers, and it was crazy during that time.
Yeah.
But it's a grooming that is different than now.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that you also touched on that I did want to just elaborate on is just like you said, Black women, and you as an executive woman, Black woman behind the scenes. How important is it to have other women like yourself in those, boardrooms, in those meetings, to green light certain things? Because we see more representation on TV now, but what is it
hmm
like behind the scenes? How does that look?
Behind the scenes, it, still needs a lot of work.
Okay.
There's still a lot of work to be done, but there's so much work that has been done. um there's so much behind it. ABC has the NBC has a Black woman that runs scripted. Like there's a lot that has been done. There's a lot more that needs to be done, especially, and it's the Viacom CBS BIPOC deal that I have is that first, the first of its kind, um, to publicly speak on it, right? In terms of not just a human resources thing, like, oh, we got to make sure we get, people of color in the executive suites. Um, what's important about my deal with Viacom CBS is that uh, a lot of the shows with black people in front of the camera have historically been run and managed fiscally and creatively by white production companies, um, and they want to change that, and it's important to change it. It's important that our stories, have a connection where a black woman or a black person or a person of color is sitting at the top. They know how to fiscally be responsible to the network as well. Not a figurehead, not a token, not someone that you feel you're going to just put in the top just because it looks good, but to really put someone in that can, talk the talk, to just really say it, talk the talk, know the game, know what it takes to get things done. It's been on the ground, show run shows, know what the budgets are, know what it is, what it means to deliver a show. People think we just shoot shows and put a tape in the tape, and then
Right.
it beams to everyone in the world. Like, there's so many steps to bringing a show to a channel or streaming platform. So that's why it's so important that it's a big move that Viacom CBS has made. And though there have been, it's not their first time, or speaking on bringing more people of color inside of the room. But I'll say that, having Chris McCarthy and Nina L. Diaz are like pioneers, man. Like, they've always, I worked on Love and Hip Hop for about 5 years. And when I say those presidents of Viacom CBS are just like in the know, they get it, they understand it. They'll even say it sometimes, like, can we get some people of color to discuss, like, they are very
Right.
aware
They
of,
get
and
it.
that's before 2020, they got it, but 2020 definitely pushed a lot of people, a lot of
Right.
corporations, a lot of things, like, forward,
It did.
with no other choice, actually, at this point. So
I did want to talk more about this deal, Viacom, CBS, MTV, because they made a $250 million commitment over the next 3 years in production to bolster the next generation of creative leaders and business owners. And you
yes.
were one of the executive producers that are basically, a part of this deal. And what are you? So now that you're a part of this deal, what exactly will you be using this investment to create?
I'm the first production entity that is coming out of the Viacom CBS BIPOC deal. And what I will be doing is creating my own, and I'm in the process of doing that now. I have some cool names, but another production entity, which I'll partner with Viacom CBS on. I'll be a majority partner in it. And what our plan is for me to bring up other showrunners and other, DPs and other writers and talent in front of the camera as well, new development ideas, but also running some of the shows that they have already that are in development and now been greenlit for series. So I'll get some of those shows as well. So it's not as if they're just putting me, like, okay, we're going to slap this on her and say that we're doing a new production entity and we're going to take 3 years to get a show greenlit. Like, that's not what's happening. But things like that have happened in the past, right? Where you get something, nothing ever happens. So they're 100% behind me, actually getting the product, the content to produce and to fiscally be responsible for. And what a lot of people don't understand, that how powerful that is when production companies work for networks. I mean, you have a Viacom CBS, but let's just say Real World is being done right now. That's Buna Murray. So Buna Murray is subcontracted to do the show, to manage and to deliver the show. And that's a big deal. Like that is there's no one, whoever, Jonathan Murray, he's the one that's talking to the executives at VH1 about the creative, about the deals of the talent, about, fighting for more budget money for the show, fighting for more post-production money. So that's going to be my world again. And remember, I did that in the beginning of I was doing Lifetime intimate portraits, back in my early 30s. So I have a lot of experience doing it. But and I think I'm going back. But what's important about the Viacom CBS deal and others that are involved with it is because I remember when we first started our small production company, there were other small production companies as well. We were at Lifetime. We were doing, Bravo development projects. I mean, we had a lot going on, but our company wasn't bought out.
Wow.
Sirens was bought. They were our competitor. We weren't two little, girls of color we were in Chelsea. Our office was in Chelsea. We had a whole post-production facility, all of that. But no one, even the other companies that had the same amount of content that we had, those were the ones that were approached to be bought out. That's
why
the truth.
was that? Why was
it
that?
was because there's no capital in, there was just, we didn't have those relationships. And it was those relationships, right? And we have some great relationships, but that was the relationship of, buyout. That's the relationship of, we are going to give you, I'm just making this up, $20 million to build this company because you have the XXX, show. One show. There are people who had one hit show on television, and they had a huge company come in and just set them up. Don't get me wrong, they had to do milestones. You didn't just get set up. You had to make sure you were meeting certain milestones to keep that, relationship going. But those are relationships we didn't have access to, and we tried, and we had the same we had an infrastructure, all of that. And so we sort of, it wasn't a good place. Mom and pop production companies can't make it. They can't make it in the world that, let me just say, not can't. Mom and pop production companies is very difficult to make it, not having backing. Because when you do a pilot now, and it's $40,000, well, you don't go back to, when they want you to do notes, you don't go back to the network and go, oh, you want me to change that? I'm going to need an overage. It doesn't work that way, because if you are funded and you have an infrastructure and you have money on other shows, you're going to amortize that anyway. You're not going to have to go back and ask for $1,000 here, 2,000. And guess what? The network isn't interested. They think that you're too small then. They think that you're someone that maybe will have trouble delivering a show. You may have, and sometimes you do, because how about if that's your only money coming in and something else needs to happen within your infrastructure? Where's the money going to come? They're worried about all of those sorts of things. It's like they want you to be set up and successful to even be recognized at a certain point. But conversely, we were successful and we were doing a lot of projects, but we didn't get picked to go to the prom. So and they're changing that now, and it's great.
Yeah, I wanted to actually talk about some of those changes moving forward. As someone who is a seasoned executive producer, you've been in this industry for so long and worked with, some of the biggest and the best. What do you think the future looks like. What's the future of film and TV production, especially now that we have COVID?
Yeah. The future of, I think that's a two-parter. I'll say how we've been impacted with COVID,
Hmm.
since I mean, it's been tough for the industry. I don't know if, not Tom Hanks, I'm forgetting his name. Tom Cruise like lost it a couple of months ago
Yep.
when he would, you remember that? And
Hmm.
whether I agree with that or not, a lot of people were back to work and it needed to work. People were not working. And if I'm not mistaken, I know you're gonna check to see before you let this air, but if I'm not mistaken, Atlanta, LA, if I'm not mistaken, California, LA specifically, is a essential worker. The movie industry and TV industry is now like an essential worker sort of situation.
Hmm.
And which is, people think that that's crazy, but LA was set up to be a company town.
Right.
It's a movie and TV town. It's not, and that's what it is. But we've taken some hits. I mean, even now when you go back into production, the tracing and the planning for, how do we isolate people and quarantine people and keep people safe so the whole crew doesn't get sick, it's been challenging, and the money that's on top of it. There's a COVID line now, that you have to have COVID compliance officers on set. You have to do the contact tracing, you have to do the tests. So that has impacted our budgets. Absolutely. Because no one, you don't want to have a liability. You don't want
Right.
people to, you gotta, businesses want to protect themselves. So, um, but things are getting back in motion. I mean, Tyler Perry is like did the amazing like platform, plan of how do we get back into production. And it's like a lot of people don't know this, but and it's not a big secret. He had this like plan that everyone spoke about how to get people back in. And he said something that was super cool. He said, look, I could go to Wyoming and sit this thing out if I want to. But I have 125 people that need to work and have families that need to,
Mm.
be taken care of. I have to figure out a way to get back to work. And he was one of the first people in Atlanta. I mean, he's a big deal. He's Tyler
Right.
Perry. And so we're back to work carefully. But what are we going to do? I mean, we're back to work, and we're trying to keep people safe, and people are happy to be back. And in terms of in terms of where the television and specifically movies too, where it's going, I mean, it's going, digital, right? It's already, digital and streaming.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think, excuse me, I think Netflix last season, it was the most Oscars or something. I don't know that for sure, but it was like unheard of. I have never heard, coming up the way we did, right? Can you imagine? Okay, Netflix is the one that has the most Oscar nominations or whatever. Um, Something you can enjoy in your living room or on your handheld phone or on your
Yep.
iPad and your computer. So with that, with the Hulus and the Amazon and the and all the digital platforms, Viacom CBS is launching Paramount Plus on March 4th. And that is, Disney Plus did it as well. It's like everyone has to get into the game linear, which is what linear and in streaming. You got to two-fist it so you can,
Yep.
so you can stay abreast and stay in the game because, traditional television is, my kid doesn't watch television. He knows nothing. It's like, a television sitting in the room to him may as well be a typewriter. Like, he
Wow.
is
Right.
so, to see him even look back at the television is weird to me because he doesn't connect with it. It's like a
Right.
piece of furniture for him. He doesn't,
Wow.
that's not where he goes for anything.
Right. Yep.
Even when he watches the game, he does it on his computer. He plugs in, his dad tells him how to, put in the Spectrum television thing, and that's how he watches it. But also, I want to say, Selena, the content creators, they're
Mm.
changing the game. Those young people who are getting a name by TikTok, through TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever in any other platform, they are the ones to watch. They're showing us how this can be done without, they don't, we reach out to them to be on television. They're like, I mean, why? I make $50,000 a month on YouTube.
Yep.
So tell me why I need to do this, where you're going to tell me where to go, where to be, how to act, what's it, the entire time you're going to direct me. Some of them understands it's another form of exposure,
Right.
but you wake up on your own, you do what you want, it's
Yep.
not,
And you're getting paid to be yourself, be authentic.
you're getting paid to be yourself. So that's, and we have to keep, innovating, because Love and Hip Hop, Love and Hip Hop, the franchise, Black Ink, the franchise, basketball wise, those are all major franchises. Nothing lasts forever, though. Nothing lasts forever. And that's another thing that I've always, and I think that's just something I studied in terms of personal growth. You almost have to have your exit, not almost, your exit strategy, not to leave the business, but your exit strategy of when this goes away. Because it will at some point. So, or it'll go a different way, and you have to be able to look at what COVID happened. And now with Love and Hip Hop, we're turning a different corner. I can't talk too much, but we have to. We have to culturally, we have to politically, we got to turn another corner. The times have really changed. Everybody has seen it. No one is complicit with it anymore, and we have to we're making the adjustments there. And even with that, you have to be able to pivot and to grow with the times, and to know what the new, what the new trends are, and where the money resides, where
Yep.
you got to know in the industry, like, what's that new thing? Clubhouse is crazy to me, but I'm still a part of it. I listen in.
Yep.
I've done some moderating. Just like with anything else, there are things I don't like about it. There's some business things that, that's not what this call is about, that I'm like, I hope we're in there somewhere, because we just made this thing into something. So those are things that, I think about. However, I'm still on. Some of the ladies invite me on to moderate and all that, and I do it because I gotta stay in the game. I can't be stuck in my old ways. You gotta stay fresh. You gotta stay fresh. So
you do.
The young people are killing it. They are killing. They're like, oh, you acting? Oh, I'm gonna just do these, Instagram skits, and guess what? They are being found that way. They are being found and doing TV shows and all that, based on these 5 million followers that they have on Instagram. I think it's awesome. I do. I think it's awesome and cool. Yeah.
Well, it was awesome speaking to you today. Thank you so much, Lashan. You dropped so many gems and insight. We definitely appreciate hearing your career and how you're applying that to the future and how things move and pivot. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.